In this video, I'd like to look a little bit about referencing, but an area that's maybe not usually focused on so much, but that is really important, which is how to still communicate your wider reading effectively with your audience. This is something that I've noticed in a number of assignments that I've been looking at recently. The students have referenced and included the information they needed to include, but the way they have done that has hindered rather than helped communication in some ways. So, why is it that we reference? Obviously we reference because we want to support ideas. I sometimes imagine that you've got somebody questioning you as you go through making a statement. Why should I believe you? When you put the reference in, you're showing this isn't just my idea, it's supported by that wider body of knowledge. It's also a way of demonstrating your understanding of your field and your knowledge of other opinions and other research that is out there. As well as the awareness, obviously, you then need to go deeper to show that you can analyse those ideas. Where are they similar to what you found? Where are they different? What do you agree with? What do you question? Often information that's given focuses on the mechanics of referencing, so the details of what do you need to include in the end-text referencing and in what order, and what do you need to include in the in-text referencing. And there'll probably be a particular referencing style that you should use, for example the Harvard referencing. Obviously it's very important to get these details and these referencing methods correct, and websites such as Cite Them Right can help with that, or various tools that you might be able to find out more about through the library. But what I'd like to focus on in this video is how you communicate your referencing. So your referencing is coming in the context of a piece of writing, an assignment, the purpose of which is to communicate your ideas. It's important to communicate the ideas clearly so that your reader, who is probably marking your work, can understand what you're trying to say as clearly as possible. So you want to communicate those ideas, provide the evidence, and obviously acknowledge sources where information and ideas has come from somewhere other than yourself. That's a key part of academic integrity. But at the same time, as a communicator, you need to maintain the flow of ideas. There are many different ways to give in-text referencing. So even within one referencing style, there are different methods. For example, you might have according to and your source, and then have the statement. So according to Rogers 2020, and then have the statement. You might have your source and then a verb such as argues, states, suggests. So Rogers 2020 argues and the statement. Or you might have a statement and then the referencing in brackets at the end. The problem comes when we see these options as interchangeable, and that it doesn't make a difference which one you choose, and that variety is nice, so just move around between the different methods for some variety. We don't want to do that. You need to deliberately choose which method, and therefore what the focus of your sentence is, based on your rationale or your reasoning behind why you're including the referencing. So are you including your referencing to question the other person's ideas? Have they had a different finding from your finding? In that case, you might have them in a subject position. You want to talk directly about that person and their research, and then how it differs from your ideas. Or are you wanting to make a statement and just show the reader that you've not imagined the information and that there's other support out there for you? In that case, you might have the statement and then the referencing in brackets at the end. You also want to maintain the flow of ideas. In other videos we've talked about the importance of lining up your sentences so that ideas flow. For example, ending a sentence with an idea and then starting the next sentence with that idea. If you don't use the appropriate in-text referencing, the risk is that you break the flow of ideas. So what you're wanting is to keep a clear road, a clear highway for the ideas to flow down. If you get the focus wrong through using an inappropriate referencing focus, you risk making trip hazards for your reader, where they focus on the wrong things and the ideas don't flow as smoothly. Let's have a look at an example. I would suggest you pause the video to read. These are two versions. The left-hand side is the student's original, and here I've changed it to show you how it might not work quite so effectively if it had been written a different way, as I sometimes see in other examples. So please pause the video and read these two examples, and then we will discuss them. Okay, so first example, underneath the picture of the clear road, is the student's example, where there you can see, highlighted in blue, they have included a number of references. This was coming from the introduction to an essay, part of the introduction to an essay. Let's read it together. Transport in the 21st century remains a top political priority. The first sentence of the essay is aiming to set the focus of the reader on the context, set the context of the essay. So it's good here that they have made a statement. It's quite broad, but it's also focused to bring us to the question. They're wanting the reference information to show that they've not made this up and there are other people who support this argument. But the reference isn't the focus. The context and the idea is the focus. They've put it in brackets at the end, which is good. Then it continues on. In order to preserve the state of the environment and tackle the climate emergency, transport planning is vital to encourage alternative sustainable travel modes. Again, the reference is there to support their idea, to show they've not made it up, but we don't want it to be the focus. Thus, it is essential to ensure transport plans and policy decisions achieve their aims, with a key focus on promoting sustainable transport uptake and, as a consequence, sustainable development. There are many factors as to why transport planning is critically important in the 21st century. However, this short essay will explore one key theme, the dependency of the private car and the importance of sustainable transport uptake to combat this. So throughout, the student has chosen that end position because the research themselves isn't the focus. It's the ideas that they're wanting to focus on, particularly in this introduction, where they're trying to set the context and then lead the reader down to the specific focus and answer, their answer to this question. Underneath the trip hazard sign, I've rewritten it in a way that I have seen in many students' writing, where the focus is different and actually they've put the reference in one of the other positions nearer the start of the sentence. Let's again have a look at this one, and I think you'll see how in these positions they actually get in the way and trip the reader up. It's not as smooth. According to Transport Planning Society 2022, transport in the 21st century remains a top political priority. So this time the front of the sentence, before even the subject, was drawing our attention on Transport Planning Society. There isn't anything particularly important about this reference. this isn't where we're wanting to focus the reader. We're wanting to focus on the topic. That's the purpose of the introduction. Moreover, Transport Planning Society states that to preserve the state of the environment and tackle climate emergency, transport planning is vital to encourage alternative, sustainable travel modes. So again, the start of this next sentence has drawn our attention straight back, away from the topic that we've moved on to, straight back onto the source of the information, which isn't the most important idea. According to Black, 1981, it is essential to ensure transport plans and policy decisions achieve their aims, with a key focus on promoting sustainable transport uptake, and as a consequence, the Economic Times argues this will benefit sustainable development. And then we go on the same way towards the end. By having the referencing information at the start of each sentence, the reader's focus is constantly being drawn back to a source of information rather than the ideas. This kind of resets our brain every sentence, and it breaks down that flow so that when you reach the end, you don't have such a strong sense of a message coming through and the idea that they want you to take away. It's disrupted the flow of ideas. It's perhaps particularly typical in an essay introduction to use for the end referencing to be particularly used, because you are focusing more on the ideas rather than on the person who gave the ideas. So here we've got another example. This one is from a report, and it's in the discussion section of the report. So the discussion section of a piece of research is really important. Again, what is the purpose? It is to analyse your findings, and in particular to analyse them in the light of other people's research. Where is what you found the same as other people, and where does it differ? So please pause the video and read this example. So in this example, you can see that the student has made two references, but done them using different methods. In the first one, we'll start from the beginning. We've got figure 3 shows that nitrogen dioxide concentrations dip in the summer. Concentrations on average increased 210% from August to December. This is particularly marked within the 2010 data, where there is an almost continual trend of decreasing nitrogen dioxide concentrations towards the summer and vice versa at all sites. This follows the trend that nitrogen dioxide concentrations almost exclusively demonstrate seasonal fluctuations. So in this first bit, the student has highlighted a finding, pointed out where it's particularly strong, and then we have this statement: this follows the trend that nitrogen dioxide concentrations almost exclusively demonstrate seasonal fluctuations. Here the student's saying this finding isn't surprising, it's expected. This lines up with what other people have found. And then he or she has put the referencing at the end of the sentence, just to show that that statement's not made up. There are other people who've had that finding, and here's the finding. Then in the next sentence we've got, however, Hargreaves et al. Also note that urban sites close to the roads display almost no seasonal variation due to the almost constant source of emissions. This, however, is not validated by the Manchester Piccadilly data. That's the students' data. So here the students moved to focusing on the other source, focusing on Hargreaves et al. Now this isn't accidental, and this isn't just having a bit of variety. This is because of the change in the purpose of why the student is using the referencing. Here in this sentence they go on to point out that Hargreaves has had a finding that is different from their research. So this time they really want to take the other research and really discuss what did they find, so that then they can move on. And towards the end of this extract you can see the reason for this may be, and then they go on to explain the reason. So where someone's ideas is just supporting what you found, and you're just trying to show this trend is the same, this idea, this is a familiar idea, they've used the end referencing. However, when there's something different, where they want to draw a comparison, they've put them in that subject position to make the actual research and that person's findings the focus, to be able to directly discuss them. So here's a little summary of what we've talked about. Effective referencing is more than just the mechanics. It's more than just working out where do you put the year, where do you put the initials, what do you put in your end text referencing, what do you include in your in-text referencing. Those are really important, and it's, you need to get it right, so make sure you are using a good tool or keeping very careful notes to make sure you have your referencing detail. And obviously making sure you're referencing and not plagiarizing people's ideas. However, to really successfully communicate your referencing, you also need to think about where the focus is in the sentence so that you maintain the flow of ideas. To help you do this, I would suggest you consider, is who wrote the source, the research paper, or the book, is it particularly important? Is there some reason why you want to draw the reader's attention to the person or that source? If it is, then you might want them in the subject position. If it isn't, then, and it's the ideas that are more important, keep them at the end. Ask yourself, why am I including this reference? Is it there to show I haven't made this up, in which case probably the end text is fine? Or is it there because you're wanting to compare differences between your research, your argument, and somebody else's, in which case you probably want that subject position? And the bottom line is, where do you want the reader to focus? The start of your sentence, and in particular the subject and the verb, and if there's anything coming before that, is so important in terms of the reader focus. If you put your referencing at the start of the sentence, that is where your reader will largely focus. If that's what you want, great. If it's not, then don't put it there. If it's in the brackets at the end, you've included the referencing, but it's really not a main part of the reader's attention.